Welcome to today's Explainer. Let's set the scene, all right? The year is 632 CE. Only months after the death of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, the newly formed Islamic Caliphate is facing its greatest internal crisis. Honestly, across Arabia, the unity of the peninsula is on the verge of total collapse. The young state, led by Caliph Abu Bakr, isn't just fighting for territory here, it is quite literally fighting for survival.
This brings us to a sweeping, peninsula-wide conflict known as the Ridda Wars or the Wars of Apostasy. We are talking about numerous tribes across Arabia that had previously allied with Medina, suddenly rising up in a massive, coordinated rebellion. It was the total political and religious fragmentation of a nascent state. The entire unification of the peninsula absolutely hung in the balance.
Yeah, see, there's a fundamental disconnect between the two sides driving this war. On one hand, you have the forces of Medina under the Rashidun Caliphate, motivated by deep religious conviction and a vision of a unified community. But out in the desert, early historical sources show us that many outlying tribes viewed their allegiance to the Prophet merely as a political treaty, one that simply expired upon his death. They wanted political independence, an end to taxes like the zakat, and a return to following local chieftains. And some of those chieftains were now boldly claiming prophethood for themselves.
Section 1. The Rise of Musaylimah.
Out of all these rebellions, the greatest existential threat to the caliphate came from Central Arabia. It was led by a wealthy, influential, and highly dangerous tribal leader named Musaylimah. He was a prominent guy within the massive Banu Hanifa tribe in Yamama. Upon returning from a visit to Medina during the Prophet's lifetime, he actually falsely claimed to share prophethood with Muhammad. According to early historical traditions, he boldly told his people, "I have been given a share with him in this matter." He was literally trying to cleave the spiritual and political landscape right down the middle.
And he built his massive following brilliantly and ruthlessly. He didn't just claim prophethood, he fundamentally altered the rules. Early historical accounts from scholars like al-Tabari detail how Musaylimah stripped away the disciplines of Islam. He reduced daily prayers, he abolished the charity tax, stopped fasting, and even permitted alcohol and adultery. By appealing to the Bedouin desire for fewer restrictions and total political independence, he rapidly amassed a terrifying army of 40,000 warriors.
Section 2. The Rashidun army advances.
Back in Medina, Caliph Abu Bakr knew exactly what was at stake. He recognized that if Yamama fell, the Islamic State would fall right along with it. So he implemented a deliberate, systematic, grand strategy, entrusting the heaviest lifting to Islam's most capable general, Khalid ibn al-Walid. Now, Khalid wasn't sent straight into the jaws of Yamama right away. Instead, he was ordered to systematically clear West Central Arabia first, deal with other rebel leaders to secure his flanks, and only then concentrate his full military power against Musaylimah.
Section 3. Clash at Wadi Hanifa.
This impending battle wasn't just a clash of armies. It was a battle against hostile geography. The rugged terrain of the Wadi Hanifa Valley, broken up by agricultural settlements, proved absolutely disastrous for the first Muslim commanders who arrived. Severely underestimating the situation, a commander named Ikrimah ignored his orders to wait, attacked prematurely, and was heavily beaten back. Shortly after that, Shuraibil made the exact same mistake. These disastrous early assaults fractured the Muslim offensive and massively emboldened Musaylimah's army. Finally, Khalid ibn al-Walid arrived to take overall command and salvage the entire campaign.
But Khalid was walking into a complete tactical nightmare. According to the early historians, he brought roughly 13,000 Muslim troops to the plains of Aqraba. Standing against him was Musaylimah. While modern historians sometimes debate the exact figures, early sources state Musaylimah commanded a staggering 40,000 Bedouin warriors. Think about that. The Muslim army was looking at a terrifying numerical disadvantage of more than 3-1.
The stakes could not have been higher. Before the campaign, Caliph Abu Bakr had given Khalid this chilling piece of advice: desire death so you can live longer. And wow, when the two armies finally clashed on those cold plains, the fighting was the fiercest the Muslims had ever seen. Musaylimah's forces were so overwhelmingly aggressive that Khalid's vastly outnumbered front lines actually broke, forcing a desperate, chaotic retreat back to their camp. This, right here, is where Khalid's military brilliance truly shines. To turn a total rout into a victory, he first reorganized his fractured army under specific tribal banners. Now, men were fighting shoulder to shoulder with their brothers and cousins, sparking a fierce, unyielding tribal pride. Then, he created an elite 1,000-man mobile cavalry reserve. Waiting for the front lines to lock into brutal hand-to-hand combat, Khalid took this cavalry, swept around the flanks, and bypassed the chaos entirely to strike directly at Musaylimah's command camp.
Section 4. The Garden of Death. That flanking maneuver was a total game changer. It took Musaylimah's bodyguards completely by surprise, collapsing the Banu Hanifa's command structure. Panicking, Musaylimah and the remnants of his breaking army retreated from the open plains, seeking refuge in a massive, fortified agricultural orchard known as Abaz. But what they hoped to be an impenetrable fortress quickly became a deadly trap. Muslim forces breached the walls, plunging the battle into intense, claustrophobic, close-quarters combat right inside the estate.
It's here, amidst the absolute chaos of the orchard, that Islamic historical traditions tell us the famous warrior Washi ibn Harb spotted his target. Washi threw his spear, striking and killing Musaylimah. With their leader dead, the morale of the Banu Hanifa completely shattered. By sunset, the battle was finally over, and the estate had earned a dark new name in history, the Garden of Death. The physical toll of this conflict was just immense. It was the bloodiest battle in early Islamic history. Thousands lay dead, including an unusually high number of prominent companions of the Prophet and Hufaz, the dedicated men who had memorized the Quran entirely by heart.
Section 5. A Unified Arabia. Now, even though the main army was broken, Khalid still had to strategically pacify over 20,000 scattered fighters in the region to bring the Yamama campaign to a definitive close. The psychological legacy of this crucible, though, was absolutely profound. Decades later, surviving veterans would tell stories to their grandchildren and end their tales with the ultimate boast: "I was at Yamama." Surviving this horror forged the Muslim army into an elite, steel-tested military force, totally confident they could overcome impossible odds. The historical ripple effects of this victory were truly staggering. For one, it eradicated the strongest rebellion in Arabia, fully reunifying the peninsula under Medina's authority. Furthermore, according to Islamic tradition, the tragic loss of so many Quran memorizers directly prompted Caliph Abu Bakr to commission the first official, unified written compilation of the Quran to ensure its preservation. Militarily, this brutal trial by fire prepared Abu Bakr's armies for their next immediate step, marching out to confront the Byzantine and Sassanid superpowers.
Which leaves us with this final, really provocative thought. What if Khalid ibn al-Walid's vastly outnumbered army had broken on those plains? If Musaylimah's 40,000 warriors had won at Yamama, the unity of the young Islamic State would have likely dissolved forever. The Byzantine and Sassanid empires might never have faced the Rashidun Caliphate. This single, incredibly bloody afternoon in 632 CE didn't just preserve a faith, it irrevocably altered the entire course of world history. Thanks for joining me for this explainer. I really hope it gave you a new perspective on the battle that shaped an empire.